Well, hello, Facebook. So we meet again. Or so we meet for the first time, if none of you tuned in for Music Making Month. But ever since we did, so those of you who don't know, ever since we did Music Making Month, we got a ton of requests from people to do it again. And I actually had a thought when I woke up today. It's been 5 years since we did that. So any of you watching, hopefully that makes you feel as old as it makes me feel. That was 5 years ago. It's not okay. I'm not okay with that. But all the same, we're back. So we decided for Reason 9 that we were going to do some streaming events because people have asked for them and because they're fun to do and it gives us a fun way to talk to you guys and for you guys to kind of explore things on a deeper level. Because while what I do typically with Propellerhead a lot of times is I make these little 4-minute videos that we watch, sometimes it's nice to watch a 40-minute video or a 400-minute. No, we're not going to be on that long. But anyway, well, welcome, and I'm just excited to see. I'm seeing comments. People are already commenting, so that makes me realize that you're hearing it, you're seeing it. So we've crossed the major hurdle. You can't tell because of what's behind me, but the technology in front of me is kind of crazy. If you saw our Twitter feed, you would have seen a little bit of a mess of wires and whatnot that makes this whole thing tick. Or I say that, knock on wood. I mean, we hope it ticks. But anyway, let me just tell you before I introduce our real guest of honor here, what you're seeing behind us, if you watched Music Making Month when we did that last, I was in a little closet, and this time we decided to upgrade. And you can enjoy behind us here, this is Propellerhead headquarters. And that is actually not only Propellerhead headquarters, but that is where the main Reason team is based behind me. And so we thought we'd set up here in a sort of newsroom-esque sort of milieu and let you guys check it out. So, Richard Laird says no sound, but since you're the only one, I'm going to guess that you got to click the little sound icon, and I'll just tell anyone else who's experiencing this no sound. You've got a little sound icon, a mute. It's muted by default, so if you roll your mouse over the video, you'll see down in the lower right corner a little speaker with an X over it, and you click that, and then you'll be hearing things. So, that's just Facebook Video 101 for all you guys. Well, Let's get things going because as much as I'd love to vamp, I'm gonna bring our guest on here because I am nothing more than a host to sort of move things along and prime the genius that is Matthias Hagström. He is the Reason product manager, which in non-corporate speak means he's sort of the dreamer. And he's both the dreamer and the tough decisions guy. He's got a lot that he needs to balance on his plate of what we want to do, what's possible, what we're doing now, what we're going to be doing later, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to say a big hello to Matthias.
Hi. You're building me up way too much.
I'm sorry. Okay, so Matthias is also a guy who has an over-healthy interest in energy drinks and guitar pedals. Does that bring you back down?
Yeah, I feel more human now.
Okay, good.
Like a person.
Okay, good.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, hey, Adam Dorn's watching.
Sweet.
Adam Dorn thinks I used to live in Ballakinwood, but I didn't actually live in Ballakinwood. I lived near Ballakinwood, but he always makes Ballakinwood jokes, and I just saw one fly by there.
I don't even know what that means.
Oh, right. Sorry. Philadelphia, suburban area, represent. Mainline.
All I know about Philadelphia are cheesesteaks, and I'm happy with that.
That's good enough. So anyway, well, Matthias, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, your background, what you do, so people kind of get a sense. A lot of people probably know you already. I mean, you were a super active forum member before you were a super active forum member officially for Propellerhead, right?
Yeah, I started first with, I think I bought Reason 3 as the first version way back. And I got really, I geeked out hard. And I did all my music in Reason for a long time. I started going to the forum and hanging out and talking to people. And I really, I loved it.
Right.
And then after a while, I actually became a beta tester. And that's how I got in touch with the people that actually work here.
You actually told me something once that early on you had a beta copy of Reason couriered to your house. And that was like this moment where you were sort of like, oh, I have arrived in some kind of way.
Yeah. Oh, it felt super serious. Someone was knocking at my door and, this was at the time where I think I was at university, probably earlier. So I was at home anyway. I was opening it up. I was in my, dirty T-shirt and stuff. And a courier was to sign this. I'm like, okay, why? And he has this, burned CDR copy of, I think it was the recent 5 beta. That felt pretty special. I still have that.
Well, just a quick shout out. I just want to say hi. Ricardo said hello from Portugal, and hello to you, Ricardo. I'm glad you're watching, and I'm glad all you other guys are. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the comments as they're rolling in here, and so by all means, throw up a comment. But I'll let you know that we also have a failsafe. If your comment's super good and I didn't notice it, we've got some extra hands just behind me on the other side of the glass here. So hopefully we'll get to all your questions. But I guess let's sort of dive into things a little bit because your role as Reason product manager came about during Reason 9. So it kind of is a good time to talk about Reason 9. So maybe we could start off by just, before we delve deep into players, talking a little bit about the philosophy behind the release to some degree.
Sure. In a way, I think Reason 9, we really wanted to kind of focus on, the journey of music. Making music is kind of, it's not easy. It's not something you do like this all the time. You got to start with an idea, you got to flesh it out, you got to make it sound good, and then you're going to kind of really polish it and make it perfect. And during that kind of journey, there's a bunch of things where we can help. So we wanted to help in the beginning to get you kind of inspired. We wanted to help in the middle to make sure you had really good sounds. And we wanted to help in the end to make sure everything sounded perfect, And we really tried to take those 3 steps and put that into the upgrade.
And so we're going to be talking about all 3 of those steps over the course of a few live streams that we're going to do. And so if anybody doesn't know yet, I can tell you that this is not a one and done live stream. We're going to do a few. I think 3 is the plan right now. I know 3 is the plan. So we're going to be doing 3 live streams over the course of the next now 2 weeks. So we're going to do one this Thursday, we're going to do one next Thursday, and then we're going to do one next Wednesday. So don't get too cozy with the Thursday plan because we're going to switch it up on you there in the last moment.
Just to make sure you're with us.
Gee, exactly. The real hardcore fans are going to set their calendar on, 3 calendar notifications. But this one, so we're going to touch on all of those areas. But so for this one, we're talking about the first area, the sort of helping you get the music out.
Yeah, exactly.
And to do that, this notion came up of a thing called a player. And that's a thing that doesn't exist or didn't exist in Reason. And so we had to create a new thing and then implement a new thing.
Yeah, exactly.
What was that about? Can you kind of give us the philosophical player 101, the elevator pitch on players?
Sure. Players really about taking what you put in and transforming it into something that sounds fantastic or something that just gets you there quicker. So for example, you might be able to play a bunch of chords. But if you want to get inspired and, not learn every chord in history or, play something really quickly, then it's a great way to get started. So it's really it's about the first kind of touch point with Reason, When you get in there and you want to put notes down, you want to put the core idea, the kind of the starting point. That's where players lie. They're the first, what do you call it? The first bastion before you actually get into the sequencer,
It's interesting because we think of, and not incorrectly, we think of synths or instruments in Reason in the rack as sort of the first thing that makes sound, and they are the first thing that makes sound, but the first thing that makes music now actually happens one step up the chain.
Sure, it could be that way. It's also, honestly, they work really well all along. I'm finding myself using the players just in any part of the process. So in a way, we outdid ourselves, right? It's not something you only use in the beginning. I started really just getting into this and using it everywhere. So. But I'll show you what I mean.
I think this is one of those learn by doing, and hopefully we've given people enough time to jump in on the stream. And I've seen a couple of hellos. Hello from Florida just flew by. So I'm withholding most of my hellos. Hello from Greece. At one point there was a guy with a really super Greek name, but I can't pronounce it. But hello from Greece. So let's get into players, though. I think now's probably a good time to really kind of dig into the basic use of players, which is really where the process begins, right? How do we use a player?
So players are really the connection between, they're lying between your kind of keyboard input or your sequencer and your instrument. That's where players live. So to use a player, you need an instrument first. You need something that makes it sound, you know?
So that's an important point. I mean, I think if anyone's experiencing the beta right now, we're so used to dragging things into the sequencer, we might instinctively just go try and start by dragging a player into the sequencer.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work, right?
It doesn't work. It's really important. You need an instrument or something first.
Okay.
So you add the player to it. You can think of it like, an add-on or an expansion thing or something, right? You're adding a feature to your instrument.
As a guitarist, I always fall back on guitar things, and I sort of think of a player, like guitar pedals always fall early in the chain, right?
Yeah.
A guitar pedal on its own does nothing, but a guitar pedal then running through an amp actually does something. So you need that 1-2 connection.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we take a look at your screen here and take us through maybe the basic player creation.
Yeah. So I have this combinator patch here already that I've loaded up in the rec. Sounds like this.
Now, it's worth saying, because that's a really pretty sound, and already I'm really like, nice okay, can we just take an hour break? I'm going to go make a track with that sound, and we'll come back. But that is actually one of the new sounds that will be part of the Reason 9 sounds, which we'll be talking about that in a later stream. But you guys are going to be getting a little sneak peek into some of those new sounds today.
Tiny sneak peek.
Tiny sneak peek. But okay, so go ahead. So we got this beautiful pluck. Let's hear it again.
It's really nice. Okay, so if I have this instrument and I want to add one of the players, I just go to the browser here and you can see, I hope, that you have instruments, effects, and utilities, like we normally have, but we also have a new category called players, and that's pretty much where they live. So you can drag any of these 3 players, the dual arpeggio, note, echo, or scales and chords, and just place it above the instrument. And it latches onto the instrument, and now it's connected.
That's pretty simple.
It is pretty straightforward, actually. I feel like this is like the basic tutorial.
I want to use all the old Ron Popeil lines, set it and forget it, and all that kind of stuff. But okay, so drag it in, and now it lives. Though it's worth saying that is now attached to that instrument.
Exactly. So
right?
If I were to move the instrument to the other side, the player follows along.
Okay.
You can you can think about it like you screw this to the back.
Right. And you also can't now, if you wanted to drag an effects device between the player and the instrument, that's not possible, correct?
Nope. It's effect devices, you can think of it, effect devices generally live below the instrument, and players live above the instrument.
Right, okay.
So that's the basic philosophy.
Gotcha. Okay, so we've now dragged in a scales and chords player, and I guess that's as good a time as any to start talking about scales and chords.
Sure. So this is the default patch. I'm going to be a bit of a tease and turn off chords first.
Okay.
Just, keeping it simple first.
You can't have scales and chords without scales first.
You can't spell.
You can't spell. Thank you.
Not even the sayings. Okay, so the most basic thing that scales and chords really does is that you select the scale. So a key and a scale, I'm going to go with C minor. It's my secret. If you ever listen to my demos or my demo songs, you're going to see every single song is in C minor. It's the only thing I can do.
Now, Nigel Tufnell of Spinal Tap would tell you D minor is the status key, but you would argue that.
Well, okay. I can't argue with Spinal Tap, so I'm going to D minor.
Okay.
So when I put this scale in D minor, what it really does is just take whatever I play on my keyboard that's in front of me. It will tune that to the scale D minor. So even if I play like a C sharp that isn't in D minor scale, it's just tuning down to C that is in the D minor scale.
So it's sort of, if we're talking in broad strokes, it's like, I think of it like rounding to the nearest number, right? Yeah, exactly. We've all done that in math class. That if you have a decimal 9.8, you go, it's 10.
Yeah,
it's the same sort of concept. You've got these in between tones that don't fall within, music theory alert, a diatonically correct. It's not a diatonically correct note, but we round it to the nearest correct note.
Exactly. So you have a bunch of these scales that you can choose from. So minor is pretty straightforward, but you also have stuff like Dorian's Spanish scale, which I really like.
Now this I'm going to speak as a musician, this is one of those things where, it instantly forces you out of your comfort zone. You know, to write in a key or a mode or a tonality that you're not used to, it's just a fact of the process that you will write things you would never otherwise write.
Yeah. And this isn't C minor, I can tell you that. So it already, already I'm outside my comfort zone.
Right, exactly. So that's cool. Okay, yeah. So but that's basic filtration.
Yeah, exactly. And what's good here is if you don't have exactly the scale you want, you can actually add and remove any of these notes. So you can kind of go, hang on, I want this weird scale that doesn't exist. And that, you can make your own custom scales, which is good if you have something going on that isn't really standard, or, you're doing some really progressive stuff. Yeah, you can cheat.
Now, you'll be happy to know that a question just came into the Facebook chat. They said, what if we want a custom scale? It's like there must be a plant.
We can see the future, which we really can't, because this stream is
actually delayed. Yeah, so there's some kind of beautiful synchronicity that just happened there.
I like it.
So now there's something worth mentioning. There's another switch there that is called filter notes, which is just two different behaviors for how this is happening, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if you could just give us the walkthrough of that.
Yeah, so I switched to C minor real quick. If I turn on filter notes here, if I'm not playing one of these notes in C minor, say an E or an A, it's not going to pass through. So I can hit the E as much as I want or the A as much as I want, but you're not going to get any sound. But then if I hit one of the scale notes...
Right.
So you can never really go wrong, right? And this is just... If you want to make sure that you're practicing your scales, you want to hear when you mess up, for example, then that's a perfect thing.
Right. I think that's what I think is kind of an interesting thing. There's a lot of people out there, myself included, who like to broaden your piano skills, and you want to practice in another key. And sometimes the wrong note is like just a little too much of a bum out feedback, where silence would be it's the more safe space version of feedback in terms of where you're hitting things right in the scale or not.
Yeah.
So that's something I found myself playing around with. That if I'm writing a melody, and I want to do it in a key that maybe I'm not comfortable in, I don't filter the notes. I let it round me. Yeah, but if I'm actually working on just my playing as a player, which is something we all do, I turn the filter on, and then it kind of makes me up my game.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, let's take a look what else we got going on then with the scales and chords.
That would be chords. That's my favorite part, scales and chords. So the chord feature, it kind of does what it says on the tin, but there are some tricks. So in its most basic form, if I turn on chords and I hit one of the notes, it's going to generate a chord starting with that note that matches the scale I'm in. So it's only playing chords that I can do in C minor.
Okay. So this is stuff you're doing with a single finger.
Yep. Right now.
Right. Let me just take a moment here. We got a couple of questions that have come in via the chat that I want to address before we dig too far into this. Somebody had asked if, effectively the question was, is it a non-destructive process? If you record the notes into the sequencer, is it recording the corrected note or the original note?
That's actually up to you. So you can do both. And this is part of all the players feature. Regardless of which player you add, you have these options on top of the players. So you have direct record. When that's off, you're recording, your normal MIDI inputs. So if I push a C on my keyboard, it's a C that's coming into the sequencer. But if direct record is on, I'm recording through the player. So if I'm, again, a C on my keyboard and I generate a chord, that's what's actually the MIDI data.
I see.
Sequencer. So you can decide if you want to do it non-destructively or just go, okay, I'm going to record whatever comes out of this.
Right, okay.
And then if you want to do it, you don't want to record right away. So you're recording your basic MIDI, and then you go, I really wanted those chords in the sequences, actually, so I can change them up. You can just hit send to track, which is the next button, which just sends whatever the player translates your input to be and makes that into MIDI notes on the track.
So it's the result of the player now printed to your sequencer.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Another question that had come up is whether this works if you draw the notes into the keyboard. We're going to be demoing by playing live, but if you're one of these people that works in the piano roll, and I'm one of those people that probably works more in the piano roll than I do by my actual keyboard, will this still do the player action based on piano roll manual drawn input?
Yes. I can do it right here on the screen just so we get an idea. So I did this short sequence. You can see it all goes through the player. So
Right.
Definitely.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so so now to take a look. So we've activated the chord switch.
Yep.
And what we're getting is just what we might call a very basic triad chord.
Exactly. You're getting the first 3 notes in the chords. But the first control, that's where you change that. So you can go from, 2 notes instead. Just the third, which is actually kind of nice. All the way up to 5 notes, and then it's adding the coloring to these chords. So when it's 3 notes, it's, a basic minor triad. Add another one, and you get the 7. And the next one, you get the 9. And that, of course, it changes depending on which scale you're in. So it's adding the one that's logical based on which scale you're in. So if that was C major, for example, the first triad is, of course, a major chord in C. The next one has the major 7 instead of the minor. And the 9.
Gotcha. So this is something that if you're not inclined, if you haven't studied music theory, some of this stuff is a little bit voodoo.
Yeah.
Some of you out there, and I'm probably one of those, have studied some music theory, and this becomes a nice reinforcement. I go, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that's how that works. And I start thinking back to some college level jazz classes where I go, oh yeah, I didn't pay attention when they were talking about it. Now I remember. Okay, so that's the number of notes.
Yep.
And now this next knob over, we'll just move our way across the panel.
Yeah, so this is the inversion. And it basically says, where do you start your chord? So in the most basic form, like when you have the triad, I push down a C, and I get a C minor chord starting with C. So it's C, E flat, and G in that order. With the inversion though, I can choose to start on the E flat when I hit a C note.
Same chord, same notes.
Yep.
But it's a different emphasis on the sound.
Exactly. And when I do the third inversion, I'm starting with the third note in the chord instead. And so on. So when I have 5 notes and do the 5th inversion, I start with the 5th note in the chord, and so on. And it's really primarily useful because it sounds a bit different, right? When you phrase your chords differently, you'll get a different sound. If you have the 5th at the bottom, it's gonna sound different from when you have the root note at the bottom. And that's really, if you don't know what I'm saying now, that's what you need to take away from this. If you switch this, it's gonna still sound good, still be a good chord. It's gonna just sound a little different.
Right, and this is something that piano players do instinctively.
Yeah,
guitarists as well. I mean, a lot of instrumentalists. Anyone who plays a polyphonic instrument understands that inversions can change the tonality of what they're playing. So this is a great way, and this is a way for you to explore. Maybe if you're a piano player and you don't actually know all the inversions under your fingers, this is a way to kind of learn them, play with them, see what they do for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's move to the right.
To the right.
And we've got this little switch here.
This is by far my favorite switch, if you can play favorites. But I want to. This really takes your chord and spreads it across more octaves. So you get these kind of wider chords that starts lower and ends higher. Compare that to the more kind of clustered.
Let's take it down to keep this simple. Let's take it down to a 3-note chord.
Yeah.
So we're not doing funky sevenths.
So here's the basic C minor. And with an open chord.
Right. So you can literally see on the piano indicator, on the on-screen piano there, you can actually see the notes open up. The notes get highlighted.
Exactly. So the 5th is where it is, but the 3rd is moving up. If I close it, it moves back down.
Right. So some people are asking if these switches and switches and knobs can be automated.
Oh yeah, of course. Just right-click, edit automation, or hold Option on a Mac, click, edit automation.
Alt on Windows.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. It all works. All of these switches and all of these rotaries are just, go for it.
Gotcha. Okay. So now, open chords, that's something you're saying is one of your favorite things. You use that a lot.
I love it. I realized when I play the piano myself, and I'm a kind of school piano player. I went to music school and tried for a while and got relatively good. But I'm still stuck in playing chords a certain way. And I realized the open chords, that's like, oh, that's how it's supposed to be played. That's how people with really big hands do it.
Right, okay.
So that's really, it's made a difference when I've tried this. It just sounds nice.
Right. Okay.
So the next couple of switches then, moving on. This is really just to add stuff to your chord. That's what it says here, add. So you can add an octave up, an octave down, or some color. So the basic form, you're getting sick of this triad right now, but I'm going to keep playing it. If you switch on octave up, you're adding the root note, but an additional octave up.
So we now have 4 notes, but it's not a 4-note chord, as it were. It's not adding a 7th or something funky. It's just recycling one of the same 3 notes.
Yeah, the root note, the most important note, arguably, in the chord. And the same with octave down. I just add the C at the bottom. And here it gives it kind of, more bottom. That's what it does.
Yeah. Okay. Now, these work in concert also, am I correct, with open chords? If you were to open up your chords as well, you can get even bigger spreads, right?
So
if you now
do open chord, octave up, and octave down, I get this really nice kind of wide chord. Compare that to if I remove all of those, and it's kind of
right.
It's not the same, you know?
No, it's not. And it's like, this is one of those things, and when I was getting into electronic music production, right, I would listen to electronic music and I go, that sounds awesome. And then I'd go to the keyboard and I'd try and make that sound. And I just couldn't quite figure, like, wow, how are they doing it?
Yeah.
And you can only Google that so many different ways and not find the answer before you have to figure it out. Right. And this was one of those things where when I turned on octave up and octave down and open chords, I hit a chord on a sound like this, a pluck type sound. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, that's how they do that.
Yeah.
And it really was quite an epiphany to me.
When you know it, it seems so super easy.
Right.
It really does. Of course, I'm adding more notes. That makes sense. But you don't think about it all the time.
Right. It's very cool. And so I have all these moments where I come up on one of these sounds and I just go like, oh, I just want to I'll just make a thing, I have more started ideas on my desktop since I started using the beta for Reason 9.
So many 8-bar loops.
Yeah, exactly. I already was drowning in 8-bar loops, but now it's been really interesting. Yeah. Okay, so
the final 2. And then we've gone through every control on this one. I'm doing this thoroughly now. This is great. So the final add button is called color. And what it does is it adds the color 2 notes above in the scale, if that makes sense. So with a very normal, again, C minor triad, remember? If I add color, it adds the 9 without adding the 7. So it jumps to the second next note in the scale. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. As a guitarist, an add 9 chord makes a lot of sense to me. It's something that we use a lot. And so it makes sense in that way. Hopefully people, can chime in. But it's just a different way of adding color than 7. The 7ths and have a very distinctive quality to them. And 9s have their own distinctive quality. So it's just an alternate way to...
And one important thing to note here is if I turn the number of notes to 5, so I have the 9 and the 7 in the chord, the color actually goes up even further.
Jazz!
To the 13.
All right. Someone wheel in the double bass. Okay.
I'm getting more jazzy before this is over, I promise you.
Good.
Beware.
So, is it worth talking about the last button that we haven't talked about, this alter button that's sitting there?
We'll do a quick one. It's the one I recommend that you try because it can do some funky stuff. So if I have this kind of 4-note chord, sounds pretty nice, and I hit alter, playing the same chord, it's changing it. So this time it made it from minor to major. Or major to minor.
Right.
So it's adding this suspense. It's adding something that you can then go, okay.
This is something that's used a lot in songs that do modulated key changes, or if you're trying to build tension going into a chorus or something, you can do these sort of things where it's you're going wrong in the right way.
Exactly, you're going wrong so that you can then go right, and people go,
it's back, it's back,
finally.
Right.
It's a really important part actually of making like good chord progression. So, and this is you automate this, or you can map it to your keyboard and push it live, which is perfect for just getting those quick chord changes.
Right. Okay. Comment coming in from the comments on Facebook. When can I buy this? I guess that's
that's my favorite question to get. Can't believe it.
So
it's already in beta. We announced this on the 19th of May, and we're releasing it on the 21st of June, and it will be available in our shop and in all the retailers, the stock propeller and stuff. So, and then if you're buying Reason 8 at this point, if you don't have Reason 8 yet, and you buy Reason 8 now, you get a free upgrade to Reason 9 once it's released as part of the grace period. So, if you want to get started, learning Reason 8, so you can then jump into the new features, it's just go ahead.
Right. Cool. Okay, well, let's, in the interest of moving along, let's move along.
That was a nice segue.
Thank you.
You're a professional.
I got a master's degree in segues.
Really?
Yeah.
No. Nice try, though.
Yeah. So, in the interest of time, let's actually take a look at the other players. Is it safe to say we can move on to?
Yeah, definitely.
So, set us up. What do we got? What's next on our menu of players?
Well, we have two. We have to pick one.
Right. Now, if the latency wasn't about 20 or 30 seconds on Facebook, I'd open it up to a vote. We could ask.
No, I'm just gonna head off with Note Echo.
Okay, Note Echo.
If that's good with you.
That's good with me.
I'm gonna load in a new patch just so we have something to work with that sounds like this. Oh, I really like that reverb. Actually,
it's quite good. Yeah.
Okay, so Note Echo is the second player. Comes with Reason 9. And this player, again, we tried to, with the names, there was actually a big discussion. We really wanted them to be named what they're doing, so there's no confusion which one you're going to load up. So Note Echo, it takes your notes and it echoes them.
Amazing.
It's pretty smart. So I'm just going to go ahead and reset this, and I can go from the beginning. So in its most basic form, you can play a single MIDI note, and it repeats it a number of times.
So now I'm just going to direct people's attentions to the thing. You can actually see the echoes happening on that little LCD.
Yeah, on the screen right here. So depending on the number of repeats you have, which is this controller right here, you can have up to 17. And now we're going to have to wait for a while.
So how you been?
Oh, pretty good.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Any plans tonight?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, it's done. Okay.
To just, one. Which could also be effective. This is just the basics, though.
Now, at this point, I'd say what we have is a delay.
Pretty much
a regular delay.
However, the big distinction is that it's not repeating the sound. It's repeating the note. So it's sending out the MIDI note again, instead of just taking the input sound and just repeating it, as audio. And that means we can do some changes to this MIDI note. So the top one, if we really have two main things here. The top one is velocity. So depending on if you go up or down with this rotary, you can remove or add velocity with every step it repeats. And that it can give you some really classic kind of delay echo effects, right? So it's really a kind of classic delay sound, but you're getting these changes that the patch does with velocity. So if you have a super velocity sensitive patch, it can sound really, really awesome.
Right. Okay. So, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is sort of the intro to Note Echo, but now it can get into modifying notes, and it can get into, you can start playing with.
Well, it can start pitching notes. That's the big one. And you can do some stuff here. We're going to get into some of the advanced stuff, but in the basic form, you select, okay, how many steps do I pitch up or down every time I repeat? So if I do just one semitone here on the pitch wheel, nothing strange. It's just pitching up one note every repeat, or subtracting one if you want. That became two, but fair enough. And that, now you're starting to think, okay, so musically, what do you do with this? And I've found a bunch of really cool stuff. So we have some patches for this one, actually. My favorite thing to do is doing these kind of, almost sci-fi crystal-y kind of sounds where you just take a bunch of notes, pitch it up, and, you don't really care about the harmony because it's an effect.
Do that again. So you're hitting a single note, right? Gotcha. And it's just going to roll through it. And every time it's just like a bucket brigade, right? Every time you hit it, it's just going to roll through.
Yep, exactly. And this it opens up to a bunch of things. So what they've done in this patch is selected just a couple of the steps, because you can select and deselect these steps. So by doing that, you can actually create these kind of on purpose melodies too, where you take, okay, if this goes up one note step every time, then this is the C, then this is the D, and that should be the E flat, and so on and so on. So you can just kind of make more nice, if you want, chords or kind of arpeggios. Again, I'm keeping them weird.
You sure are.
So that's kind of when you start getting into it. One of the kind of features that you don't see immediately that makes this cool is the step length, which is now at a solid 20 milliseconds. Can be synchronized too, but it could actually be 0 milliseconds. So it plays all the notes at the same time.
Now, why is that cool?
Oh, I hope Tage is in the other room. He's a house head. It's cool because now instead of doing like with scales and chords, you're doing the chords that fit your scale. You're doing the opposite. You're taking a chord and you're just transposing it up and down. So this is a 6 add 9 chord. But if I play that on different keys, I'm going to get the same chord, but it's kind of just going to transpose up and down. It's not going to adapt to my keys. So it sounds really kind of cool. 90s even.
That is, so that is a sound that was birthed by primitive samplers that you sampled a chord and then you transposed that, and it was a sort of non-smart transposition.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's all of those kind of retro things, right? This was deemed not nice. They would have killed for scales and chords.
Right, exactly, right.
But this is what you get, and it's the sound of so much. And we have included a bunch of patches with these players, all of them actually. So with the Note Echo, you get a bunch of chords, the Jazz 9 or Major 7.
And there you go. That's, I'm ready to listen to like a Sade remix or something.
Oh yeah, you just want one drum loop and you're kind of safe. Maybe a bass. Maybe a bass. So cool. Note Echo, it can do a bunch of things that you don't think about. And really my absolute favorite that I found myself using way too much. I'm going to change this instrument to an electric piano.
Oh, see, now we're changing. Okay, see, Billy just grabbed a light stick. He's going to have to put the light stick down because we're leaving the warehouse raves.
It's too much raving too little time. So I'm going to load up Radical Keys here. That's an electric piano rack extension. And I'm just quickly going to turn off the Note Echo first so you know what I'm working with. Every player has an on-off switch here, so you can just go, okay, it's not active. And this patch sounds nice. But when you're doing like kind of funk stuff, you always play in octaves, which is kind of hard on your hands after a while. So this patch is really just adding 2 octaves down by pitching down 12 semitones every time. And step length to 0, and you get this.
Wow.
It's really kind of fat chords because I'm playing 3 octaves at a time.
Right.
And I use that all the time. Fattening up basses or lead sounds. It's really one of those kind of tricks that I went, oh, this is my favorite patch. I'm going to put this in my favorites folder.
Yeah, that sounded really cool. Give us a little more of that. That sounds really good. That's great.
It's pretty cool.
If Adam Dorn's still watching, this has got motion worker written all over it.
Yeah. We have a bass somewhere in the background, and eventually we're gonna have to stop and just to slap bass.
Okay, cool. So that's neat. I hadn't even heard that sort of fullness.
Some secrets from you, just so this live stream is exciting.
Yeah. Oh, you've.
I do my best.
It's fresh all over again.
So Note Echo, this is one of those things that you really want to try it out because it can do a lot of stuff you're not thinking about. Just, try going, okay, hang on, if the step length is super, super short and you do octave ups. So one of the things that Speo, I hope he's watching, Speo, famed tutorial maker on YouTube, he's done a lot of great patches too. If you do this kind of similar thing with, a simple square wave, a chiptune kind of sound, and you pitch it up, you do just one pitch up, 12 semitones, one octave, really short step length, and getting this really classic chiptune sound. Maybe even shorter. Let's do around 30.
Right. So that's just sort of, 8-bit music. Here we are.
Yeah. It's a nice cheat, doing those kind of arpeggios. If you add a couple of steps, you understand where I'm coming from. So that's really one of those Note Echo tricks. There's a bunch of those, and you'll figure them out, I'm sure.
Right. Okay. Well, let's move on because we could explore all of these for a million years each. But let's take a look at the next and final player. Set us up. What do we got?
So I'm gonna, of course, do a new patch. This one is actually made by the guy who sat in the other room 5 minutes ago, Leo.
Oh. So it's a nice another pluck, I would call it.
Oh, I love plucks.
Who doesn't love plucks?
Probably some people, but
I don't want to be their friends.
I don't want to be that guy. The next one I'm going to show is called the Dual Arpeggio, and this one's got a lot going on. So don't be frightened when it shows up on the screen, but there's stuff happening. I'm just going to be nice at first and just reset this, so we don't start with the awesome patch that I did. This is one that...
Wait a second, wait. Was that a humble brag? Did we just...
It was a humble... Okay, I'll go back. I'll play the patch that I did. I really like it.
Okay, but we'll get there.
Right,
we'll get there. Let's go back to basics.
Yeah, so I'm going to reset this. And really, Dual Arpeggio, it's 2 arpeggiators. That's, again, we put it on the tin. We want to make sure you get what it is. But it does a bit more than that. And this is one of those things that came out of Pelle, our main DSP guy and the founder of Propellerhead. He's doing stuff on his computer quite often. This is one of those things that he comes up and go, hey, I made this. And it's just, what? It's amazing. I use this for everything. So in its simplest form, the arpeggiator 2 here on my screen is actually turned off. So I'm going to use the top half. Ignore the bottom half for as long as you can. The top half is right now a pretty normal arpeggiator. It's set to 16th notes, 1 octave, and going up. So if I play just a chord, nothing strange.
Nothing. Now that is arpeggiator in its most classic form.
Definitely. When it starts happening is when you check out these switches next to the screen. Steps, pattern, and velocity. So normally the arpeggiator takes whatever velocity you're putting in, and it just, that's the velocity I'm going to use for this note. If you turn on velocity, you can actually change that per step. So it's going to go, okay, high velocity here, lower here, and so on.
So it's if those of us that are familiar with step sequencers, it's sort of a step velocity sequencer.
Yeah, exactly. If you just use that, and this is when it gets crazy because the combinations are so many. But in its basic form, the velocity can act as a kind of step sequencer only for velocity. The notes are still the ones you're putting in. You can also set the number of steps. So a normal arpeggiator, if I play 3 notes on my keyboard, it's going to play 3 notes in succession. If I add a 4th, it's going to be 4 notes long, and so on. So it's just going to be as long as the number of notes I play. With steps, I can actually set that. I'm going to go, okay, 7 notes. So even if I play 4, it's going to repeat after 7. Now we're getting into odd meter territory.
Right. So this is like instant polyrhythms if you wanted to explore polyrhythms.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So you can do one that's on 4 and one that's on 7, for example.
Right. And so they don't, and for people listening and watching, what you end up getting is that you set up one on 4, one on 7, and they don't repeat evenly. And so they start sort of orbiting each other, much like Pluto orbits. No, that's not quite right. But they don't orbit each other evenly. They don't repeat evenly.
We have to show it. We can't just.
We have to show. Okay.
We can't do the Pluto thing.
You're right. You're right.
I'm
Okay.
going to turn on Arpeggiator 2 and set that to 4 steps. So now the bottom arpeggiator is going to play my 4 notes, and it's going to repeat them every time I played 4 notes. And the top one's going to do 7. I'm also going to transpose the bottom arpeggio to an octave below, just so we can hear the difference. Now when I'm going to play these 4 notes, you can hear it kind of repeating and looping around itself. It's a really nice sound.
It becomes a really nice, it creates kind of a whole musical phrase rather than just a single bar or
yeah, exactly. And speaking of, that's the last mode. That's the coolest by far. So I have steps on. I can also turn on the pattern switch. And this is when stuff gets kind of advanced, because this is not just a monophonic arpeggiator or just 2 monophonic arpeggiators. It's actually a polyphonic arpeggiator where you can sequence patterns. So basically these rows allows you to put in some notes. They can be long notes or tied notes, or they can be really short notes or kind of semi-long notes. And now when I play a chord, it's going to map up the first 4 keys that I hit from bottom key here and the top one here. So when I play just a chord, it's going to actually play this pattern with those notes. And you can see the note names showing up next to the notes.
Right.
So it really allows you to do more kind of, almost make the music here and not just play, a cut up chord that you made. You're really making a pattern for your track. You're really making, the main hook or the comp or something that really, you have more power here.
Now, this is something that I used to do, and I say used to as of 3 weeks ago. Yeah. I used to do this in the piano roll. I'd lay in a chord, or I'd figure out the notes of my chord, and then I would just go through, and I would do this. This would be my evening. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make, an 8-bar interesting pattern that's going to work on all my chords. But every time I switch chords, now I'm moving things around. And
you have to transpose it every time you switch chords, which, every note, you can't just move it down because this doesn't have the same, distances and so on. So it's a bunch of work.
And I can say, as much as you could say, oh, well, okay, you're just doing the work of making music, but what I have found is that because it's faster to sort of prototype these patterns in Dual Arpeggiator, I actually end up exploring more options. I actually go deeper into the pattern that I'm making because it's not such a pain in the ass to make changes if I want to try something else.
I'm realizing I'm just doing stuff differently. I wouldn't sequence like this in the sequencer. It's not that I couldn't do it. It's just that I wouldn't think of it.
Right.
I wouldn't think about doing these chord breakup things and so.
But maybe this is actually a good segue. I did master in segues after all. To actually talk about something which is the send to track button, which exists on the players, because we're here creating this nice little pattern, and it doesn't have to live in the player itself.
Yeah, so let's just try it out. That's the easiest way to put it. I'm just going to turn on the second arpeggiator so we get, a really complex pattern. So it's going to sound like this. And I'm just playing chords. So I'm going to go ahead and just record this in the sequencer, as I would do any other track. I'm just going to play these chords, so hang tight. Pretty okay. And when I play it back, it will just be these notes getting sent through the dual arpeggiator again. Right. Nothing strange.
So and if we even looked at the MIDI clip, we're seeing just the sustained notes that you played in.
Exactly. It's just the notes I held down.
Right.
Just the chords. Now, if we want to actually work with this arpeggio, I can simply go and click. Let me bring up the sequencer so you can see it. Click the send to track button here at the top. And what it does is just take the input, run it through the arpeggiator again, and then sends that down right here. So now, instead of the chords, I have this really actually complex pattern.
Now that's me. That's 11 p.m. I'm giving up for the night. I've finally gotten it to that point. Yeah. That's what you've done in that one button click.
And what's really nice here is that now, and this also bypasses the player, by the way, so these don't go back through the player. When I have this, I can start making changes, right? I can go, okay, hang on, I want to change this chord over here. And just do a tiny kind of difference there. So I'm still getting, the meat of the pattern, but I can do small changes and alter stuff and kind of, especially if I'm doing like a build up or some kind of bridge, you want some changes.
And that is where, that is sort of where this is not music in a box. This is sort of, it's working in concert with you, your own taste, and the role you've always had as a music maker to actually make the music.
Yep.
So you take this, you can go ahead and customize it and, play with note lengths, play with whatever you want once it's in there. I mean, we know how to work in the sequencer. We all know that.
Yeah.
So
and the dual arpeggio, I mean, I don't think we can cover everything it can do right now, but it has stuff like repeat modes, you can do keyboard splits and so on. And it comes with a bunch of really cool patches that showcase what it can do. I'm just going to show one that I really love it. It's one made by Ludwig, who's the product designer. And that generally means he knows stuff really, really well. Right? He's pretty much.
That's what it says on his business card. Knows stuff really, really well.
Ludwig also knower of things. I'm just going to go back to this electric piano. And this patch, it's really, and he's a big funk guy. Gonna turn this on again.
Right.
And that's the kind of stuff you can get into, right? If you really want, to do something really taking advantage of the dual arpeggio, this is the height of the kind of cool stuff you can do.
Now, thinking back to what we just went through, I would think I would take something like that. It feels good. Then I send that to my track, and now I can open up the Groove Mixer and I can really start getting into, the swing feel of that. There's a million different ways to feel that in different pockets,
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, sure, you can be that deep, but if you're just a synth guy who likes arpeggios, you can just do something nice like, maybe an up versus down kind of thing. And it's pretty cool too.
Show people again sort of what you were doing there. I was watching the
I'm just
screen.
I'm just going to play some chords.
Okay. And that's just doing, it's traditional arpeggiators, but stacked.
Just an up and a down.
Right.
Yeah, so you can go from basic to really kind of advanced if you want to.
Excellent. Well, that I think what's worth talking about now. We've gone through the players, and like you've said, and I've said, we could be at this all night. Really, I'm sure some people would like us to. But I think this is something. The beauty of this is that these players get deeper and deeper the more you explore them. I'm still finding that, and I'm still thinking of new ways. When you start to learn what they do, you find yourself, the same way that we all tend to think about reason. Maybe it's wiring or synth, sound design, or little tricks that you think about. You'll be riding on the bus. You go, oh, I got to try that. I have the same thoughts now about players, where I go, oh, but if I set the time to 0 and I do this with transposition, you get into things. But where that really takes off is not just in using a player, but in using players. And it wouldn't be reason if players were not stackable, rackable, arrangeable. And maybe you can tell us about what happens when you start doing that.
Yeah. So, I mean, in the most basic way, they're feeding into each other, right? So if you put the scales and chords above a note echo, it's gonna, repeat the chord up and down. So they're really just kind of helping each other out in a way. So when I was playing the dual arpeggio just now, I had to play all my chords, right? So I can actually not do that and use the scales and chords instead. So for example, just drag in a dual arpeggiator, have this basic patch. And if I would play a chord, it sounds nice. But I'm getting tired in my fingers, so I can just add a scale and chords and maybe take some cool patch anthem chords. And now I can just use the one finger instead. And the chord that's generated from the scales and chord is the one that's split up in the dual arpeggio. And it's not like I can't play those chords, but I probably wouldn't come up with that thing.
Right. And so this is something, and this was a profound experience for me when I started using that exact combination, scales and chords into dual arpeggiator, because like I said, I spend my evenings, I'm a lonely man. I spend my evenings in the piano roll. But
the piano roll, sitting in a tree.
But what I realized I could do is just what you did there, and you do it instinctively, and people will have this experience when they start using it. You instinctively start exploring the contour of melody in a way that you never did before. When you're working on chord progressions, you fall into like, a three chord progression or a 4-chord progression or a 2-chord progression. And why not explore more? What more can you do with these, Yeah. And so that's what I started doing is all of a sudden I started thinking about chord progressions the way I think about melodies. Yeah. And the fact that you can do that and that it has such a musical output, it just blew my mind.
Yeah. And I can do another example really quick. That's another one of my favorites. So you remember the chiptune patch? That was pretty basic, right? When I did just an octave. I can use the note echo and do, the sci-fi thing that sounded, if you remember, like this. That's nice if you're about to die in the game you're playing.
Right.
That's the game over screen, But you can also add scales and chords just after the note echo. And now it's going to make sure you stay in whatever key you choose.
Right. So we've taken the sort of, you can have your note echo two ways, right? On its own, it's a non-intelligent, you could say. It's a more that 90s sort of style of basic, transposition. And this then now sort of forces that into the key you're working in.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you just take a polyphonic sound, let's go with one of the plucks again that I like, and maybe change the step length a bit. Now you're actually getting chords each time.
And that's all happening. So so for people that are watching your screen, you're hitting a single note and you're getting that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not about, hitting a single note,
right.
Really. It's about getting this kind of melodic motif. So if I have this kind of backbeat, I go. You're getting these ideas. And then you just, take these chords down to the track. And you start going, okay, this is the chords I want to work with. I'm going to change them a bit, add a beat or something. So again, it's all about that starting point in a way. If you're not the kind of person who thinks, if only I could play in key, then you can use this for inspiration. That's what I do all the time, And I studied, music theory at university. Super boring. super boring. But useful,
Right.
But if you didn't, these are super helpful. And if you did, they're still
right. So that's sort of the thing. I think, it's one of those. It can come at it. You can come at it from two ways. There's the people who they don't play keyboard. Maybe you're a guitarist and you just you're totally comfortable on guitar, but you're not on a piano. And so some of these sort of playing aids, as it were, are helpful in that regard. But then you've got the people who maybe they know to play piano, but they want to explore it a little deeper, or maybe they want to do things in an efficient way, or maybe they want to do things they would have never thought of, like that thing you just did with Note Echo. You could sit me in a room and I would probably never write that.
Yeah, exactly.
But if I happen upon it through experimentation or through exploring these players, I'd catch it. I go, that could go somewhere interesting.
Yeah, it's all about getting these ideas really. And that's what I care about the most, when I'm sitting down to make music. I used to do a lot of music for video games and stuff. And part of the problem was sitting down and having an idea. That's tricky. That's tricky stuff. You're going to go down and go like, okay, happy platformer with a bird that's running around and eating cinnamon buns. That's hard. And that's where you get inspiration from kind of stuff like this. I got it from synthesizers. I got it from, exploring things. And this is another thing to explore.
Right. Chris Horton comments, he says, Propellerhead just single-handedly revolutionized, I think he said, the way that music is made.
I like that guy.
I know. I think there's a lot of people that are going to like that comment. It is, at the core of a lot of what we do, that we want to help people make more and better music. And I think that I'm always surprised. I shouldn't be, but I'm always surprised when it works on us, right?
Yeah, right.
When I go, oh wait, I'm making more better music, and I guess that's sort of we're our own guinea pigs.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the beta testing phase, that I've been doing this for a month now, and I love it.
Right.
I do. And we've been trying this out during the entire development period, making sure it feels nice and talking to users and going, okay, what do you need?
Right.
How can we help you make music?
Right. Well, so why don't we look at some more combinations? Because the combinations don't end there.
No, let's do the combination of combinations. The biggest one I can imagine. No, it's just all three. I can imagine bigger, but that one's a favorite. So I'm going to start by just doing a note echo, and I'm going to kind of go and pitch this down a bit. And I'm going to make it a bit slow, actually. I'm going to sync it to the tempo, and maybe, something like that. Because what this allows me to do is make this the chord changer. That's what it's going to do. It's going to take it down 2 semitones every time, every second quarter note. So then let's add scales and chords to that. So just make sure, okay, I'm getting something nice. I'm going to change to one of my patches that I like.
C minor.
C minor.
You must get a royalty on the C minor from the C minor people. The C minor council.
A lot of people don't know. I invented C minor.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah. Oh. No, it's not true. I'm sorry.
Oh.
So now when I play this, just getting me a new chord every time, right? And if I hold it down for longer, which is sweet. And then of course you think, dual arpeggio. I should probably do a dual arpeggio. This is just using the initialized patch, again, which I like. So you can really take that far if you want to make, the music making machine kind of combination.
Right.
And this is kind of what we showed in the video. And I think it's really taking it almost to the extreme.
It does. It takes it to extreme. I think that's something that we even realized when we were making the videos. It's sort of, if you take it to its logical conclusion, where you've got all of these things operating at all four cylinders, you're generating a lot of music from not a lot of input.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, but that's the extreme. So you've got that down to everything. The most basic scales and chords, filtering out so that you only get the notes in the scale, all the way up to these sort of phrase generators, and everything in between.
Yeah, it's flexible what they can do, and it's all about what kind of thing do you want them to do. Do you just need some chord inspiration? Fair enough. I actually, since this scales and chords has a lot of weird scales too, if you want to go for it, you can have stuff like a whole tone scale. If you're all into, progressive music and that kind of stuff, you can do this with, organ patches, and suddenly you're all, I know what you're doing. You're one of those people.
I'll have you know, there's none of that in my Spotify playlist.
I can imagine. There's some of it in mine.
Well, there's one of those that I noticed when I was playing around. As a guitarist, right, we play power chords.
Yeah.
And that's one that I was playing around and I found it, but it was hiding in a place that I got it through experimentation. But maybe you could show us the chromatic if you set your scale to chromatic.
Yeah. So this is one of the things where if you actually take all the notes, all of them, then, it's not really a scale, is it? It's just all the notes. So it's going to play a chord that we just selected. But if you bring that down then to 2 notes.
And add color.
Or 1 note. And add the color.
Now you got your power chord. Rest in peace, Keith Emerson. Right.
I like that, actually. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, so you end up getting these, and then you can, depending upon, this is a guitarist thing again as well, but you can add the octave up, and now you've got sort of that more 3-note power chord.
Or just...
There you go. Right. So there's, and there are things like that I'm kind of still finding, as I play around with these players, I'm digging in and going, oh, there's that and there's this, and so, I think the thing to tell people is, it's up to them to play around.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
And, that's where the fun gets. As much fun as it's been to do this first live stream, I'm most excited, I think, for everybody else to get out there and really dig into it.
Yeah, big time. I can only imagine the kind of patches and combinators and stuff people will build. So, like, you can put players inside of combinators to separate the instruments and do key splits and that kind of stuff. And patch makers will have a field day with this. You can have an arpeggiator for the bass and a chord generator for, the middle section. You can have some kind of nice solo instrument on top of that. You can do some stuff.
Right.
I'm really looking forward to what people will find out.
And when we say you can do some stuff, we literally mean you guys, right?
Yeah.
You can sign up for the beta. The beta is a public beta now. And so people can sign up, and as, you know this better than I, as it's sort of, people are brought into the beta in rounds, right?
Yeah, exactly. The further along in development we are, the more testers we're going to need. So we're going to let on people, plenty of times a week, probably at least 3 times a week we're letting on, hundreds of more people. So if you sign up on the Propeller at the front page, you'll be put in the queue and soon you'll get in.
Right. A question coming in here that I'm seeing from Eden. Upgrade from 7 to 9 possible? Upgrade is always possible. An upgrade from 1 to 9 is possible.
Yeah.
And it's all the same, right?
And if you move from 1 to 9, welcome back.
Right.
You're my
right.
friend
Or
again.
our hearts go out to you if you've been in 1 for all these years.
That's old.
But yeah, absolutely. From 7 to 9, yes, it's absolutely possible, and you will be getting not just. It's worth mentioning to these 7 customers. You won't just be getting the players, and you'll be getting everything that came in Reason 8 as well.
Yeah, exactly.
The redesigned browser, the drag and drop, the convolution reverb that came with the revamp of
I love that.
RV7000 Mark II. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
So absolutely. Well, I think it's worth saying some thanks to Matthias here, and I have enjoyed
Thank you.
my
You've
first
been,
hour
you've been
with
a
you.
Perfect host. You've been so good. You've been nice. You've been asking me questions that I totally didn't know you would ask.
I got my master's degree in hosting.
Oh, in hosting.
Yeah,
too.
I did. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. It's been great. And so, guys, we're going to be doing a lot more of these. So this is not goodbye. This is we'll see you real soon. We're going to be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel. It'll be Thursday, 6 CET, and you guys can do the math for wherever you fall in the planet. But I believe that is noon, 11? Noon.
Pretty sure.
Thank you. I have jet lag still, so
You're forgetting.
that'll be noon on the East Coast. That's 9 a.m. on the Pacific Coast. And since I'm an American, I'll say that those are the only places that matter, the American time zones. And I won't do the boo boo. All right. Well, listen. Thanks everybody for watching. We've really enjoyed it. Thanks for your questions, and I hope you guys got a better look at these players.
Thank you,
I hope you get an even better look when you jump on the beta or when you get Reason 9 when it comes out on the 21st of June. And let's all make some really cool music, because I know I, for one, will be making a lot of music that's really new. So I hope you guys are too. Well, take care, everybody, and we'll see you next week.